Hello and welcome. This is Lita Downs from the Center for Faculty Excellence, and I would like to welcome you to today's recording, Fostering Student Health, Purpose, and Connection by Delivering Personalized, Contextualized Faculty Mentoring Experiences on Learners' Terms. Our three presenters are from the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, and we have Dr. Jason King. He is the Student Development Coordinator. We have Dr. April Young. She is the Student Support Coordinator, and Dr. Nina Spadero, Skills Development Coordinator. Our three presenters originally presented this at our Walden 2019 National Faculty Meeting in National Harbor, and we're thrilled to have them here today to record this session for us so you can listen to this wonderful and very important information that they have to convey. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. King. Welcome.
Thank you, Lita Downs. We are so excited to be here and for you to take time to watch and to listen to us. We're from the School of Counseling, and so as counselors, we have our own unique kind of style and approach to our outreach and our support of students. So we just hope that you can take away some principles, some ideas, and then personalize it in your program or in your own individual work that you do. At either a faculty role or some administration role or even a staff position within the university. This has been something that's been in the making, in the works for many, many years, and goes back well over a decade. As the School of Counseling launched more programs and obtained national accreditation, previous leadership identified needs to have more dedicated faculty positions, coordinator positions, to be able to properly manage, monitor, and respond to the needs of our students, which we were having, almost 4,000 students enrolled in our master's and doctoral programs. And that just becomes an impossible task for a program manager to manage in an effective manner. And so what we're going to share comes from our counseling literature, our counseling accreditation standards, and our counseling ethical standards. And it's our way of blending all of this together in a way to support our students. And so again, hopefully you can take away some tips and some ideas, and you can personalize in your own needs. Again, this is a process that we've kind of been polishing up and refining over the years as we get feedback from students, from our faculty, from other administration within Walden, in collaboration with legal counsel, student affairs, Carolyn Roney, Disability Services, even our former ombudsperson, Bob Brandt. We've just received a lot of input from a lot of voices on how to polish this process up. So, to begin with, you see here an email that I received from a student that she comments that she felt that my outreach to her indicated a sense of caring. And some context to this is that in our program, we are evaluating students systematically on what are called dispositions, and our profession defines these as the beliefs, the values, the behaviors, and the style of interpersonal functioning that our students demonstrate that need to be commensurate with becoming a licensed, a state regulatory board licensed and or a nationally certified counselor. So there's a lot of accountability, the bar is raised high, and these are standards and expectations that go beyond and outside of what's in the Walden's code of conduct. They're more particular to our discipline, but in some ways they're kind of some common life skills, such as resolving interpersonal conflict, being assertive, and being open to feedback, from your faculty. Well, this student was in one of our group work, process, and dynamics courses, which is where they learn the theories and principles of how to run a psychotherapy group and also participate as a member. And the student was demonstrating some deficiencies with her skills, counseling skills, but then also her dispositions. and was not open to faculty feedback, and you could say had an attitude. And this student was then referred to me as I coordinate our efforts to mobilize, resources that we have, and dedicated faculty that serve on a student development committee as part of their work plans with us. This student was not open to our outreach for personalized, more individualized teaching, instruction, mentoring. This student took it as a personal attack, being singled out, and so forth. So in a way to try to melt this student's resistance, I sent her a story that a student of ours that is now graduated and licensed as a counselor, but many years back was also identified by faculty as not meeting dispositional expectations. And we work on developing those with what we call a student development plan. It's not disciplinary, it's not a sanction, it's nothing like that. It's developmental. We're just accelerating the students' growth and learning in particular areas so that the knowledge that they have and then the counseling skills, that then their dispositions are in sync with those, because our accreditation body requires all three of those to be at a pretty much similar in sync level throughout the program, and especially upon graduation when we give the stamp of approval and issue the student's degree. So I shared the story of this previous student many years back that she voluntarily provided to us, to Nina, and then we got permission from legal to share this with other students as needed. And the previous student shared her similar reactions, negativity towards my outreach and resistance to the process, feeling singled out and attacked, because we're addressing personal characteristics and attributes of these students, because who they are personally carries right into a counseling session and their relationship with vulnerable clients. And this student then eloquently describes her process of letting down, her defenses, being open to the growth process, receiving our feedback, and engaging in self-reflection, examination of her reactions, and changing those in a manner to have improved emotional regulation, professional maturity, and so forth. So I shared this story from a previous student with the student that you're reading here, her email, where she thanked me for caring, and that I shared the previous presentation from our other student. Because I asked this student why she decided to come back, meaning come back to work with me. She had just kind of checked out and said, I'm not going to do the student development plan with you, Dr. King. And so when I asked, well, why did you come back? Help me understand. She said, the story of the previous student conveyed to me that you guys care and that you're coming from a position of, genuine concern for me. And that's what touched her and melted the resistance so that she would open up in our student development plan process. It's one example of how we try to make this connection very personal with our students, and that we really try to bridge the gap between being online to meeting our students where they're at. Because without having a campus and offices for students to come into, they naturally feel disconnected from us, and they don't know how to reach out for help sometimes, or they may feel, ashamed or embarrassed to do so. Next slide, please. So we have some particular specific assessments that we have put together based again on our published literature, our accreditation standards, our ethical standards, that we administer systematically throughout a student's program of study, their degree courses. And these are certain benchmarks then that allow us to measure student progress and then to respond, intervene accordingly with additional faculty support, resources, and so forth, to be able to assist the student in really kind of getting, a jump start in particular areas to support them academically. If you would like any of these, just feel free to email us and we'll send them to you. They've been polished and refined over the years, but they provide a very formalized and consistent manner in which we can assess our students in required not only knowledge, but counseling skills and then professional dispositions that really define what it means to be a licensed or a certified professional counselor. And the next slide. So Dr. Young will then explain her process of when faculty identify concerns and they submit what we call a student concern referral, how her frontline team then responds to assist and support these students.
I need to unmute myself. I'm glad that little sign comes up. Good morning, everyone. So I'm the student support coordinator, and I have a wonderful committee of folks who serve on my School of Counseling Outreach Services team, SACOs. And what we do is we assist students get through challenging times and try to keep them on track in their program of study with minimal amount of disruption, hopefully. We care about the success of Walden students and about what's going on in their lives. That's our whole mission statement. That's what drives us. That's the ball that we keep our eye on. So next slide, please. So in doing this, we have many, many things that we do. One of the things that we do is if a student has, say, a short-term kind of life challenge, say the flu or getting married, or one of their children's sick, but not a real big kind of sick, but it's demanding a lot of their attention. It's taking away from their class time. Then faculty often reach out to me and ask, what do you recommend I do with this student? And I will work with the student, with the faculty, to help them maintain that faculty-student relationship. I may even write an email kind of structure for the faculty to use with the student. And I'll say, well, you might want to tell the student first, share some empathy. I'm so sorry this is going on for you at this time. Here are some things I can offer you. Here are some resources. I have a whole resource list that I offer to faculty, and it's a dynamic list because it keeps growing. It's got all Walden resources on it. I'll talk more about that list in a few minutes. But anyway, so I help faculty with that classroom management, if you will, when there's smaller life challenges. Next slide, please. Thank you, Lita. Now, when there's bigger life challenges, big life challenges like a major illness, cancer, a death in the family, homelessness, natural disaster, domestic disturbances, any of those really big things that hugely impact the student's ability to stay focused or stay focused on their coursework, then what happens is chances are the faculty member will notice it in the classroom. They reach out to the student says, yeah, I'm really trying. However, my son just got diagnosed with cancer and, oh, it's just occupying my whole thoughts and being and blah, blah, blah. So the faculty member will fill out a concern referral form, send it in to me. I will assign one of my committee members, and my committee member reaches out right away to that student. That starts the process. The student responds to the faculty member has a phone call, hears the whole story, offers lots of empathy during this and support during the phone call. And then we start looking for resources. What can we find to help this student stay active in the classroom, or maybe not stay active in the classroom? Maybe they need to step out, depends on what the needs are. But anyway, we begin our search. What's the best thing that we can do for this student right now and in the future? We stay with students sometimes for a quarter or longer, 2 quarters, sometimes all the way up to field experience. We've had a few students that we've stayed 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters. So we stay with them as long as they need us. Next slide, please. So here's a few emails. I just randomly selected a couple of emails that tell you the kind of emails that we receive from students about our support. What I liked a lot about these particular emails is how the students generalize it to Walden overall. They say, this tells me what Walden is about, or this really speaks about, I feel that Walden truly values its students on a holistic level. I'll never forget this moment as continue to pursue my education. So things like that. I love these kind of emails, and boy, I just sock them away. I have a whole file of them. The other thing is our support for students really can't be measured quantitatively. In other words, we can't say because we supported this student, they graduated. We also can't say because we didn't support that student, because we don't even know about that student, they're not on our radar, they left the school or anything like that. Our stuff is kind of hard to measure quantitatively. However, these are the kind of things we can measure, and these are the successes we can measure. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of ways that we match students with Walden Resources. And I'll go through briefly over them. As you're watching this presentation, you can read them at your pace. And what I would recommend is, as you're reading them at your pace, think about your area, wherever you are, business school, nursing school, IT, whatever. What would you do with a student in your area to link them up with resources in your area? Now, remember a moment ago I said there was a reference list that I have that I developed for faculty, but my committee members use it, I use it, my goodness, that I'm constantly updating. And it's a reference list that has Walden Resources, and they're Walden Resources. I think at least 95% of the items on that list are Walden. They're university-wide. So they're available to everyone. I'm offering that list to you. At the end of all these slides, you'll see our emails. Please feel free to contact me. I will email that to you at any time. And then once I email it to you, I'll put an email list, and then anytime I update it, I'll send you an updated list. And just as an aside, if you receive the list and you see something that I'm missing, please let me know. I'll add it to the list. That's how I keep it updated. So anyway, on this list are things like disability services and how to contact them. And of course, the Writing Center and student success coaching, all kinds of resources. My goodness, I've been developing it for over 5 years, so it's a little bit lengthy. I think it's about 8 pages, but it's just resources. So anyway, so here we have student experiencing depression or anxiety. There's a Walden Student Assistance Program. This program links students with counseling services in their area. Great program. And not only that, their website has some wonderful resources for resources, literally, resources like on bereavement, on finances, on anything you can think of. So once a student signs up to their website, they can go there and get all kinds of resources. You as faculty can go there and get the same thing. So you can go there and get resources and send them to students. If you want instructions on how to do that, contact me. It's easy. Anyway, so I would send the student to Student Assistance Program. I would also, the committee member would continue to offer support. Hospitalization of a student or close family member, disability services. Anytime there's a medical concern, disability services. And again, committee member stays on with support. Teenager runs away. Well, we want the student assistance program, what I was just talking about. We call it SAP, Student Assistant Program. And then disability services, because there might be some mental health challenges there, which is considered a medical condition. The student success advising, the advising department, and again, committee member support. Now, down here at the bottom, I have an automobile crash, minor injuries. What we would do with this one is, I don't think I would even assign a committee member. I'm going to assist the faculty member with managing this one in the classroom. And so what I'm going to do is have the faculty member say, how much time do you think you need to get things squared away? Because I understand if you get a car crash, it takes time to get things squared away. Maybe a week, whatever the case may be. Ask the student how much time. Students are actually, a majority of the time, less inclined to ask for a lot of time than you are to offer a lot of time. Because if I were thinking, I'd say, oh, you're going to need 2 weeks to square that all away. They're going to ask for about 4 days. Normally. There's always exceptions. So anyway, ask them how much time. If it's a student that has been asking for leniency all throughout the term, the faculty member does have the ability, if you will, to ask for a police report. Don't worry about asking. I mean, you have the right to ask for that. So anyway, next slide. I know I'm moving through this quickly. Student struggling with job stress and is new to online services. Here's that student success coaching program. Great program. They talk about, stress management and how to handle the online programs, all this kind of stuff. Great program. And then, of course, the committee member support. That student success coach programming, that's on that reference list that I talked about. Student overwhelmed with bereavement from a recent loss. Here, depending on their bereavement, I may, or my committee members, may recommend that this student take a step back. They may need to step out of the classroom, take some time off, and just deal with their grief. They're imploding. So we may recommend take the time off. Even if it's past the withdrawal date, they can do that and file a petition for a tuition waiver or a retroactive withdrawal and not pay for the class twice. And they do that by contacting Walden, the academic advising, student success advising. So hard changing to that new name. Anyway, so those are options for them. Student concerned with grades and faculty feedback, but this non-dispositional, in other words, they're not calling names and throwing rocks and doing whatever the case may be. They're just being grouchy about it. Then number one, we'll send them to student success coaching, but then also the committee member works with students like this and helps them develop ways to communicate with their faculty in non-confrontational ways to ask for help and support. So those are some of the things, some examples that I just came up with off the top of my head, ways for you to think, to help you think of ways in your area that you might link up with resources in your area. The next slide, Lydia, please. So I just have some examples here. One of the examples that came up in the last session was the person listed that when they start giving leniency to a student, then it snowballs. The student gets behind, and then they either disappear or they implode or whatever. And I say, that's when you want to use strong boundaries about your leniency, keep it structured. That's why the leniency from disability services is so structured. So you give them 1 day or 1 day for discussion posts or 3 days for assignments and stay with that. Once you ding them the first time for a late posting, they'll get on board. They will stay on track. So that's my recommendation with that. Otherwise, sometimes you're just going to have to let them fail. Anyway, so that's what I have. I hope that some of this stuff can be implemented in your area. The support services, the outreach services have been so beneficial for students. I'm so impassioned about it, obviously. Otherwise, why would you see my hands flailing all over the place? So I'm turning it over to Jason, and Jason can take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, April. What her team does is so critical to supporting students and their ability for program completion, retention, and helping students develop the confidence, the skills, the assertiveness to be able to ask for help and to be aware of all the diversified resources that university offers, because it can be overwhelming for students.
Mm-hmm.
So when student concerns or behavioral, problems increase to a level where it now is what we call a dispositional concern. And again, a dispositional is kind of our accreditation term for there's behavior or there's attitudes, there's beliefs, there's values, there's methods of interpersonal functioning that don't align with what the counseling program expects from students. That we now look at addressing their dispositions and having a more different, but again, a very personalized approach, which we call a student development plan. So on the next slide, what we have here is one of our early alert systems that's connected with one of our systematic assessments that we have. It's anchored in certain classes throughout the degree process, and faculty evaluate students on 10 key professional dispositions. If the rankings or the grading of these fall below a certain critical threshold, I receive an email alert from the system that we use as Metatrek. And then I go on a scavenger hunt, in a sense. I go into Blackboard, I look at other classes the students taken, I get a sense of how their performance has been. I may reach out to student success advising and learn if they're a transfer student, what's their GPA. I may also consult with disability services to see if the student has applied or received accommodations. I just try to get more information about the student, and then I do an outreach to them. And here's an example of an email that I sent in response to receiving a critical alert for the student development assessment when the faculty member submitted this towards the end of a course. You can see it's personalized, it's grounded in the particular class, and then what the faculty identified. And here at a global level, the faculty indicates there was inconsistency turning in assignments, and that's pretty much it. That's all the faculty really knew. The faculty wasn't able to get much more information or response back as they reached out to the student. But my invitation to the student then triggered the next response on the next slide. You can see here where this student now unloads that time management, struggling tremendously, just trying to stay afloat on top of everything. First time doing online as a student, so it's a whole new culture, and a demanding full-time job. Very stressful to the point it's impacting the student physically. So I'm imagining probably sleep, fatigue. They may even have, nausea. They may be having panic attacks. They may, pains and aches. Who knows? But this student is definitely stressed out. But the student unloads a lot and shares a lot. I think because of my personalized outreach. And then asks for advice or help, which this student did not do during their course for whatever reason. But this is an example of one of the values of having a early alert system, a systematic formalized assessment procedure for our students, and so that really no student gets left behind. This student is a high risk for dropping out, which then impacts our retention rate. But of course, we're invested in each student because we do care about them and we want them to be successful in their career goals and completing their educational goals. So when it comes to a student needing a formalized development plan, it's just that. It's something developmental, which the next slide shows. That this plan will break down particular identified behaviors of concern and then require students to work on what I call positive opposites, the professional dispositions. And the language that you see for the two dispositions that are listed here, this comes from published research from counselor educators, so directly from our profession. It's not language that I create or make up, so that students don't feel like this is personal, you know, or that faculty has some vendetta against them or an attack, which some students have felt like our outreach efforts have been towards them, unfortunately. They're feeling singled out, they're feeling picked on. And that's because a good number of them are marginalized students. They are victims of discrimination in the past, trauma, abuse. And when we're reaching out with concerns and we're offering feedback that affects them personally and professionally, our students can get very hypersensitive to this. So you can see that in a development plan, we really personalize this and we spell out concretely where the student was deficient in a particular dispositional skill demonstration. So you can see an example here in the first column on the left, identified behaviors of concern for number one, that this is documented material that was received from a faculty who had a doctoral student assigned as a teaching assistant, a TA. So this is a doctoral student who's held to a higher standard because they're co-teaching a master's level class. So we give the student, you know, particular specific feedback so they know exactly where they were off track with a required and expected dispositional demonstration. Then we provide specific positive replacement dispositions as goals that their assignment is designed to stimulate, to develop, and for them to be self-reflective and to work with the faculty on a one-on-one dedicated manner in a mentoring relationship that's very individualized and personalized for the student. So this is just one example of how our development plans get very personalized in how we provide feedback to our students. Next slide, please. And then, so Dr. Nina will now talk about skills, the tangible counseling skills, and how her team and committee support students in that area.
Thank you, Jason. So first of all, I want to say that each of us is the coordinator of a super committee that hasn't really been mentioned. And it's one of the ways that our leadership has given us the freedom to do what we do. And it's just amazing because I think there are a lot of you listening or watching who might be wishing that you can do this, and maybe this little piece will help you understand how it happens, that we have committees of people that were ad hoc committees, but they're called super committees because the faculty have more work to do with their one-to-one mentoring duties or their group leadership duties, and also they get relief for that from some teaching. And so that's how we that's how our programs have invested in us and in these kinds of support efforts. And without that kind of investment, then this wouldn't be happening. But it's really super important when we have a big, robust program, because the more people you have, the more of these kinds of life events are going to occur. And I wanted to add something to something that April Young just mentioned earlier, which is there's not a lot of understanding of whether or not we're helping. Years back, there was a survey that our program director, Tracy Senstock, had done to try to figure out why we were losing students in the early terms, especially in classes that relate to the skills, clinical skills area, which is what this committee does. And for the most part, the largest significant amount of students who dropped out attributed it to life events. And I think that that's a super important call out. That information has really added to our department's, our program's support of what the three of us do together. So going on, skills. Again, I know that some of you listening may not be counseling or human service folks, but for everybody, there are particular career readiness skills, and clinical skills are something that is my bailiwick, my specialty in the counseling, school of counseling. So we, as the Skills Development Super Committee, help in two different places. We do it actually face-to-face on ground at residency and pre-practica when students struggle with performing in front of one another. They struggle with having to demonstrate skills at a particular moment that they know they're being evaluated for. And this is not something that I think is limited to just our area. So when that happens, what we've provided for them is a space where they get mentoring one-to-one with either virtual faculty, somebody who is on a video conferencing call, or for the most part, real people who are present and able to give a hug if necessary. The Skills Enhancement Lab has a specific setup because when students come in, they are introduced to a very peaceful ambiance with low light, soft music, a diffuser with essential oils, weighted blankets, and the directions to go inside and introspect and remember why they're there, the reasons that have driven them to get this education. And then from there, once they've calmed themselves, then they get their mentoring experience with a faculty member. The same kind of ambiance of acceptance and welcome and understanding has to be communicated to our students when we work with them online at home. And that's what's communicated by a phone call, or even better, a video call. Because even now, you know, as you see our faces, you get a sense of who we are. And you may have put us in, I doubt that you were scared of listening to us today, but our students most certainly are scared of us, are intimidated, intimidate themselves over these kinds of things. And so truly, what we do is we are ourselves, and we reach out as human beings to our students. Next slide, please. So our skills mentoring plans that the 12 faculty who I work with, and it's 12 currently, that number can change. What we do is we first are identifying students who need skills support, and they're usually identified by the faculty in their courses through assessments that are offered regularly throughout our program. And I think the importance of having consistent standardized assessments throughout the program where the attainment levels change as students go through the program and they raise is super important, because we can clearly see that our students are developing or stuck. And then once they receive our skills support, we can see that they can once again advance. And this goes through field experience. So from the time a student is in their very first clinical course, which is second term, through the time that they finish after 60 hours of both clinical content and field experience courses, we can see that they have attained a different level. And with this program, students are given individual help, group leadership. We work in groups and we work with individuals online. We've also added an element, which is writing skills. And this really is a matter of helping students to navigate the already very rich resources to which April Young referred earlier. we have amazing resources through the Walden Library, through the Walden Writing Center. And students are often, as I think I have been, overwhelmed when they see what they can do. There are certainly ways that both of those programs have reached out to students, but one of the things that we do with a personal touch is we assign them a personal guide or a person that is their shepherd through that. When they have writing skills issues, we've found that faculty just referring students to the Writing Center, the students don't usually go. When they have somebody who is interested in helping them and sympathetic to the fact that it's a hard place to navigate sometimes, or it's a little overwhelming because then they think, where do I start? We help them figure out on their own a little bit, and with a little bit of guidance, how they can start to find out which particular areas of those resources can be helpful for them. Our biggest thing is experiential learning, because we provide role plays. Our staff of 12 often get a lot of counseling. No, I'm kidding. We pretend to be clients for our students, and we do it on video and get them to watch themselves afterwards, which is a very rich experience with personal, individual, and very positive feedback that we give. Can we have the next slide? So this is where it's your turn to think. Where in your field can you identify some key career readiness skills? And they may be very different. One person in an earlier presentation brought up that critical thinking is important across disciplines, but what that looks like is a little different in counseling, in social work, in business, in advertising, in nursing. There's all sorts of ways that we particularly kind of own certain aspects of critical thinking. So when you want to look for these skills, if you're wanting your own skills program, you look into your scholarly literature, you look into what the accreditation and licensing boards are asking of the professionals in your field, trade journals, job descriptions, and that will help. We all have behavioral skills that are needed for students to succeed. And I kind of want to point to the fact that Jason King has put together an amazing list of just 10, and they encompass some of the most important values and behaviors and interpersonal functioning areas for counselors. But I myself have used it in counseling people in other careers, because those specific kinds of disciplines. So I encourage you to get in touch with us individually or as a group, and there's going to be a way to do that at the end, because we'll give you our email addresses. But I encourage you to use what we've done, don't reinvent the wheel, to start a template for what you need in your discipline. Can I have the next slide, please? So the next thing is for you to identify those discipline-specific career readiness skills. For us, it's counseling skills. Can a person repeat back what another person has said? Could you right now? I hope you couldn't, because there's a lot of words we've used. Could you recognize the emotions behind what a person is expressing nonverbally without saying so? These are career readiness skills for counselors. But what are those skills? And honestly, I've met some amazing people in marketing and business who have those very same skills. So those skills are the ones that are necessary. How they're expressed might be in a different paradigm, done differently. So this is your opportunity. And then specifically for the kinds of research work that are done in your area, what is it that students need most to develop in terms of maybe conceptualizing what is needed and finding the gap, or in expressing it in a dissertation? So these are specific skills that you might be thinking about supporting students by figuring out a way of training them in this, and maybe in experiential ways, as my skills faculty has done. Next slide, please. So we're done. And we want to thank you for looking at this and viewing our program. You've done so because there was something that caught your attention, something that you might need. I think I can speak for all three of us. we all wish that every program at Walden had a triple safety net as we provide. And so we hope that we put a little bug in your ear, not talking about caterpillars, a little bug in your ear that maybe that is something that you can gain support from your leadership for doing, giving you a few ideas. And please, next slide, please. Feel free to contact us in our specific areas or because of some of the resources that we have spoken of in this presentation. Thank you again for watching.